Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Greta. Good to be back with you.
Nice to have you back, and a congratulations is in order. It's the first time I've seen you since you won your election, sir, so congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's good to be on this side of an election so we can give back to the people's business that is so very important to all of us who live in America and around the world, frankly.
All right, so you've just heard Condoleezza Rice, and she talks about the importance of leading. Is the U.S. leading?
So far, we have been leading from behind, which is not leadership from my perspective. If we're really leading, then what you'd see coming from the White House and from the administration is a long-term strategy that starts at the victory line and works our way back to where we are, not last continuing resolution, $500 million, and now we're looking for $5.6 billion. It's like having a blank check with no strategy. The first thing we need to see is a long-term strategy that does not simply degrade ISIS, but that defeats ISIS. That means those details and the specificity within that plan must be presented to Congress so that we understand how the money is going to be used effectively so as to keep Americans safe around the world and bring peace back.
Do I take it then that at this moment, if you were asked to vote on $5.6 billion, that you would say no, that you don't have the details, but that you are open to it once you hear the details?
I certainly think we want to make sure that the troops have the resources necessary. I have two brothers active duty in the military today. They're willing to risk their lives. I think they deserve a strategy. I'll make sure that they have the resources, but Congress and the American people deserve to understand the strategy that will be used to use those resources effectively.
You know what always confuses me is the president's asked for $5.6 billion. I never know. How do you come up with those terms? Maybe you need 6.6, maybe you need 4.6. I mean, that's the question I would ask is, like, where do you come up with the 5.6 so that I'm satisfied, in addition to the question of, you know, the strategy issue?
Well, I think you're exactly right. One of the things I found very challenging during the continuing resolution conversation when we approved about $500 million, there was no doubt in my mind that $500 million was simply a drop in the bucket if we were going to be successful in challenging ISIS both in Syria and in Iraq. That amount of money does not lend itself to being successful. I'm not sure what $5.6 billion actually gets you in a two-prong attack against something that is far more aggressive than al-Qaeda.
Senator Rand Paul says that he believes it's illegal for the president to go alone, that he needs a congressional vote. Where do you fall on this? Can the president do this alone, or Senator Rand Paul says he's actually outside the 90-day period in the War Powers Act?
Well, there's no doubt that he's been going it alone. The challenge that we have is we need to see the plan so that we can weigh in. I do believe that it is very important to the American people for Congress to weigh in. I believe that we should all be on record on how to make sure that we defeat ISIS, which means that Congress needs to vote on not only the resources, but also understand the plan that we are implementing with the resources.
President Obama said on Friday he's going to send 15 more non-combat troops. That came in after the election. Was that coincidence or political?
There's no doubt about it. It's absolutely political. We're up to nearly 3,000 folks now from our military working to make sure that we are able to assess what's happening on the ground. I'm not sure what the definition of boots on the ground is, but I will say this, that when we have 3,000 men and women in harm's way, understanding that strategy is clearly very important. Having the resources to be successful, clearly important. And I haven't seen those two coming together very quickly. And this is something that we've been fighting from behind. We've had all these artificial red lines, all these artificial starts. It is now time for us to have a long-term strategy. That does not take an election to start that process. This has nothing to do with elections. This has to do with the safety of Americans. We should have that. We should have had that a long time ago.
Senator, nice to see you. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Good to be back.